This week on the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus, the 5-6 things or so that make your favorite tracks your favorite tracks. Those things they're not as ineffable and as mysterious as you might think. It does come down to a few things that make classic bands, classic songs, classic. The stuff that just jumps out at you. That's what we're going to be talking about this week on the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. You're listening to the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus, changing rock history, one podcast at a time. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. My name is Lou Lombardi. Sitting with me tonight in the co-pilot seat is the lovely and talented Miss Lily V6.
What's up?
Lily.
I wear my Christmas shirt.
She's all Christmassy. Christmassy?
Christmas.
Is that a word? Christmassy.
I mean, it is now.
Christmassy.
It is now.
All right, Christmassy. Okay, so you're listening to Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. Our website is loudinirockandrollcircus.com. Please check back often for tons of great, cool podcasts, interviews, all kind of cool stuff out there. So we're going to be, you can find all kind of specials. A lot of cool stuff there, as well as this craziness right here, the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. We will have Keith the Hawk Hawkins joining us here in a little bit, so we're looking forward to having Keith on. Tonight's topic will be what makes those classic songs classic. Why are they so freaking good? Why are they so amazing? Why do you love them so much? So we're going to be getting into that here in a little bit later on tonight. You're going to be hearing some cool music. Tonight's featured artists are Stallion, Lou Lombardi's Strange Love, Despyre, and Graveyard. So we're going to have some cool indie bands this week. Plus some other fun. There's some rumors out there we want to talk about. There's a rumor about Van Halen possibly doing something in 2019. So, who knows? So we're going to be talking about a lot of fun stuff like that. Lillian, anything cool you want to announce here before we get into the rock and roll?
I didn't do much this weekend. Wait, yes, I did. I lied. I saw that band that, oh my God, my brain just broke. Did everybody see what I did this weekend? Because I don't remember now. It's an 80s band. Damn it all to hell.
Wow. So while Lily gets her head together, we're going to crank up
mind's blown.
We're going to crank up a little Stallion, and we're going to come right back and get into tonight's show. You're listening to Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. Again, our website is loudinirockandrollcircus.com. This is Stallion, slow release on the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus.
When you're
right, that's Love Stallion, slow release from Unforgettable Ride. And who do we have here watching? Turn your phone around. You're sideways. What's going on? Speak up. Crank that sucker up.
I'm sick, man. So you have to do.
You're sick.
Yeah, I got the croup.
Oh no.
You got the clap.
It can't be.
So what's going on, bro? We got Keith the Hawk Hawkins has joined us from NOLA. Speaking of NOLA, I got my Christmas gift today from Keith.
Yes.
And a cool little shot glass. What did you get, Lily?
I got an ornament for my really demonic tree that's a little voodoo guy. It's appropriate. And I have a shot glass, and I got a necklace. There's my ornament. It's a little voodoo man.
Voodoo man.
That I love.
It's all voodoo all the time around here.
Right? That's what I love about it. Oh, and a picture of the baby.
Look at him.
Oh, look at him. I'm getting a frame for it. Look how precious.
It was so well behaved that day.
Really? How did you get him to sit still for that?
Drugs. Drugs and more drugs.
He's so precious.
Well.
Oh, and this wonderful skull necklace.
It's better living through chemistry. So, Keith, we are. What have you been up to, brother? We haven't talked to you in a while, so why don't we give us the Keith Hawkins update?
Well, me, I have been busy lately. I have been playing a lot of gigs. Right now, it's going to be obviously Christmas time, so hopefully I'm looking actually forward to taking a couple days, not only to just try to shake this cold I have, but to just kind of not gig, if you can believe that or not. But I have to play still every Friday, and then I think I have something next Thursday. But it's this time of year, it's a little hit and miss. But lately, though, it's been pretty busy. But we'll see what happens, man. Then start to hit it hard in the new year. But other than that, I'm just doing my thing, man, with whoever.
All right. Tell us about your band again, because you are playing with an original act too, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go. Not too many gigs on the horizon with that band yet. It's more of a studio thing coming up in January. Black Laurel. It's gonna be done at NOLA Studios, but it's nice little personable studio, we'll call it. It's not real big, but it's affordable, and it's turns out pretty good project. Samantha Fish did a project there, actually, of all people.
Oh yeah, Samantha Fish. I know Samantha Fish. Yeah.
So it's a nice little. It's a guy has like a part of a house that he turned into a studio, and it's pretty chill, laid back. So we'll start doing that at the end of January, I believe, and then other than that, man, it's not too much gigging with them. But the cover stuff I have is, it stays pretty consistent. But, that's not going to be recording anything anytime soon.
Right. Are you, with the cover stuff, are you primarily jamming right there in New Orleans, or are you traveling?
Most of it in New Orleans. Most of it's either in the French Quarter or a little bit outside of New Orleans. Not super, super far. Like maybe the farthest I had to go at this point was I went to Mississippi a couple times to play gigs. So but Mississippi from New Orleans isn't super far. Like you can be in Mississippi in like an hour or so. That's where from where New Orleans is.
It's like Pittsburgh to Wheeling.
Yeah, it's not like super far. So
right.
I mean, you could be Florida in not that much time. So it's kind of the bottom of Louisiana, but it's just it's further to get to the top of Louisiana than half the other states you get into. So it takes forever, it seems like. But you could be in Mississippi or Arkansas or somewhere else, within Alabama with shorter time.
Yeah, I got you. So where are you right now? So are you in your studio or are you at the kitchen table?
I'm in the kitchen table.
Cool, man.
I think this is the place where I get the best lighting, so that's gonna kind of is what it is at this point. I don't really have any good lighting in the other room.
All right, my man.
As we've discovered.
So what's we're tonight's topic is we're talking about the 5, like, well, I came up with 5, but the things that make the great tracks, the great bands great. You know, and I think there's a few things that are kind of in common. And so wait a minute, Lily has something to say. Go ahead.
Check our live feed.
Okay, what's somebody
It
say?
looks like it stopped.
Our live feed has stopped? No. Say it ain't so, Joe. Anyhow, so Keith, kind of what are your sort of thoughts on that? Like, give me one thing and kind of expound, if you can, a little bit on what you think when something breaks or is really big and really resonates with people. Give me one thing that you think might be like.
Just reading like the comments and stuff, and I agree with some of them. Then some of them I don't really agree with. I mean, that's just it. It's how it is. But like I think a lot of people overlook what it actually takes to make a great band or a great record, great song, whatever. Like a lot of people were saying like about producers, yeah, that helps, but it's like sometimes you can't polish a turd, man. You have to have the magic there. You have to have the chemistry of the members that get together and hopefully turn out the best they can do. Whether it's the Stones, the Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Pink Floyd, whoever, these iconic bands put together so much great material because they just happened to be, when they were in that room together, whether they were getting along or not, that magic was happening. You have to have that. That's a given. I mean, you have to have that chemistry and the ability to, whether you like each other or not at that time, you have to be able to play in the same room.
Because a lot of times they don't.
And not kill each other and just do the music thing. And I think at the end of the day, that's one of the things where everybody's been in situations where they've been in bands with people, whatever level, where they might not agree with everything or that's said or done by certain members of the band. But at the end of the day, you're really trying to make music together, and it's like the common goal that you have. So you have to have that chemistry, man. That the bands have to be on the same page, or it'll be probably not go too far.
So it's so you feel like it's the chemistry.
Yeah, just to make a great, like even to write one great song. I mean, you have to have like that. That magic has to be there. You have to capture that. Okay,
I can go for that. So you feel like it's band chemistry, but what about? I mean, could we dig a little deeper? Because that is kind of because there's a lot of stuff that's not a band. You know what I'm saying? Per se, like for instance, and I'm not saying there's no chemistry in Steely Dan, but or that's not a part of it, but that's an example of like a lot of studio musicians working together. So what? I mean, one of the things that is kind of on my list is I think that the music, whatever you're doing, has to have some kind of relevance to it has to be relatable in some way, shape, or form. This is something I think too that like radio looks for in the old days when radio really cared. But I think that like people in today's world, with the modern sort of equivalent to that is bloggers and podcasters and stuff. They look for stuff that sounds like, even if it's retro, even if it's got a retro vibe, because there's a lot of bands like Rival Sons and that have this sort of like a little bit of this sort of 70s throwback in them. They have something fresh. They have something kind of like that sounds relevant to what people want to hear, or to the sort of vibe of the era. And I think that, and I think lyrically too, it has to have something. So I think that it's got to have a relevance to people in terms of music and in terms of the sort of lyrical hook that it has. There just has got to be something in it that's kind of relevant or relatable to people's lives, even if it's something really crazy. Like, look at all the people that love the song like Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a crazy, like, what the hell are they talking about?
Nobody even knows what it means.
Right, but I think a lot of people, the overall vibe of the song about this person who is kind of like, it feels like they're like of an outside, they feel like they're kind of an outsider. That is something that, like, everybody can relate to at times in their lives, because we all kind of feel like, as much as we're part of the world, we also kind of feel like, I don't know if I belong, who am I, what am I doing? So I think that, like, touching on relevant themes that people can relate to in some way, shape, or form, even if it's very cryptic. I think, like, a lot of Steely Dan songs are kind of cryptic in terms of, there's a lot of, like, inside jokes and stuff in a lot of Steely Dan's music. I don't know why I'm on a Steely Dan kick. I'm just using them as an example because I'm talking about, not necessarily a band per se. It's two guys with some studio musicians, but they were still able to kind of create that. And I think part of that is the sort of relevance of what they're doing. They create music. They created sound that became lyrically and musically kind of like people kind of identified with. I think that people that liked rock listened to Steely Dan, and it made them kind of feel like a little headier and made them feel like a little smarter because it has that sort of jazz thing going on. And I think people that liked pop music, it was right up their alley. And I think a lot of people who liked good lyrics. So I think there was a lot of stuff that kind of come together. Again, this could be any band. We could be talking about Led Zeppelin. We could be talking about any band. But just in terms of a band, something that's not particularly a band, but it's more like a kind of a project. So that's kind of my sense. What do you got, Lily? What are you thinking about?
I was going to throw Dedication out there, and the example I'm going to use is from the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, where they stayed on that farm and sat there for I don't know how many weeks or months or however long they were there, and they stayed and took the time to make every sound perfect, like when they were doing the operatic stuff and everything, and just your band comes first to make it perfect. And I just think the dedication has to be there, otherwise you're gonna kind of know that it's kind of blah. So I think
blah.
Yeah. But I
be blah.
when I was thinking about this topic, I kind of referred to that movie for the dedication part of it because of how they created that album.
What do you guys think about this one? I'm gonna throw this word out. Okay, and just kind of like, I'm going to throw out the word quirkiness.
Okay.
Because when I hear bands like Queen, and I hear bands like Led Zeppelin, and all the great bands, I mean, even if you want to talk about a band, you want to talk about like somebody like Rod Stewart, or somebody like that, they all have this sort of like sound to their voice, or they have this like vibe to their music, or they're doing something that's kind of standoutish. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so homogenized that so it's got like a kind of a weirdness, a little quirkiness to it. I mean, in Led Zeppelin, you could say, well, you've got Jimmy Page's like kind of like really thin guitar sound with juxtaposed from John Bonham's huge drum sound, and then it adds a kind of like quirkiness to what they do. Plus, Led Zeppelin does a lot of sort of fun songs too, like Hot Dog, and so kind of like, they're not afraid to kind of go off the beaten path a little bit. That's not so. Compared them to like bands from the 80s that really tried to imitate them, that missed all of that. They just played big loud rock, and they didn't bring any of that earthy quirkiness to it. So what do you guys think about quirkiness, or sort of like uniqueness, or something original, something kind of really stands out that you go like, it doesn't quite fit, but yeah, it fits perfectly. You know what I mean? Well, can you guys talk a little bit about that?
I think you need something original. You can't have 6 cookie cutter bands. Example would be 80s hair metal that all do sort of the same thing and it stick around, because it's just not going to happen. So I kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody, where the guys like did the weird different things, and Led Zeppelin when Jimmy Page used the bow on the guitar. Well, I
mean, a good example of that is the vocalizing in Queen.
Right.
That's completely different. I mean, that's like a whole different...
And they didn't even want to do that. The manager's like, I don't know.
Right, and it became, that kind of became like yes, they're a great hard rock band. They do all these, Fat Bottom Girls and, Tie Your Mother Down that are like straight up your ass rock and roll songs, but they always have this thing with the vocals that makes them kind of go like, it's super distinctive. Why don't you talk about that, Keith? Like, you don't have to talk about Queen if you want to give some other examples, but you know what, this idea of quirkiness, or kind of like the kind of thing that kind of grabs your ear that goes, that's different.
I think that goes back to a point I want to make is where sometimes going back to the hair metal thing, or if you want to blame, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, grunge, whatever, on destroying that, I think sometimes the musical landscape in a whole can set the mood for what people want to hear. Everybody in the 80s wanted to hear, nothing but a good time. They wanted to hear, those bands were popular for a reason. They hit a nerve with people that just wanted to party, and they party their asses off. And then you got 100 million bands that sound like that, so it tires itself out. So when you got someone like Kurt Cobain, or whoever you want to blame for that, come along, it's a little bit more darker. It's a little bit more angst going on. Then you have bands that now will take off and have that more darker in your face, like deal with more social issues, because there's more to talk about than just having a good time, I guess. But that's so these people sometimes lyrics, whether you like these bands or not, lyrically these bands can hit a nerve too. Whether it's going from all the way from the hair metal bands of the day where they're talking about the one thing, and then going from all the way to Eddie Vedder mumbling about social issues that he can, sometimes he can relate to, because I can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing where you have to have not just a gimmick, but you have to be able to say something. And if you could say something, and if it's coming through in a lyric, and make it a hook, and you can in 3 or 4 minutes say that one thing you're trying to say, then you can be a great success, and then it could take off. So then I think, unfortunately, I think people tire of that too. They want something else, because people's attention spans aren't that long nowadays.
Well,
so
I think that this goes back to the idea of quirkiness or freshness.
Yeah,
something that kind of like takes it in a new direction, because you figure so Sabbath broke, and if every band would have just been like cookie cutter Sabbath, let's just do that, then that would have petered out. But because so many, because then all of a sudden you had bands like Deep Purple, who were kind of like Sabbath with like a second guitar player who's actually a keyboard player, and all of a sudden that's like, well, what's this? What's that? I don't know that sound. That's different. And then you kind of follow it up through the decades. All you look at all the metal bands that broke, they were not just broke, but were like super influential, like bands like Halloween. And then moving on up through like Metallica and Iron Maiden. Like one of the things a good example is Iron Maiden. And here's what happens with quirkiness: as many people who are going to love you, a lot of people are going to hate you. And a good example is Bruce Dickinson singing. That is the trademark of Iron Maiden. He's got that kind of, people call it operatic voice. I guess. I think it's kind of an insult. I think if you really sang opera, if you knew opera, you wouldn't say that. But it has that kind of thing going on. And there's a lot of people that I talk to are like, yeah, I like Iron Maiden, but I don't like that operatic kind of singing. Whereas their fans, that's a giant hook for them. That's kind of what grabbed them. It got them. It caught their ear. It was like, this is different. Like, what is this going on? I mean, Paul Di'Anno, was a great singer, but I think what really kind of gave them their signature was when Bruce Dickinson came in with that kind of like different thing, and he is the king of that. And anybody who tries to sing like that is called a Bruce Dickinson like imitator, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, have people, anything that's successful, people are going to try to definitely duplicate. That's why you get stuck in these 20 million bands sounding the same. So to bring something, but then that's the thing too, where it starts to like be to the point where everybody's doing it, and
then
that's why I think even using the metal genre, you had a big, through the 80s, 90s, the grunge came along. It was still heavy and dark, but then all of a sudden, maybe people got tired of that, and then you started to get into what they would call new metal bands, which were heavy, but they used elements of funk, they used elements of hip hop, they were using elements of a lot of different things, and you had the Limp Bizkits of the world, the Korn, the Linkin Parks, all that stuff.
They tried.
How that kind of takes over, where maybe people wanted a different sound, so now you get that. It's metalish, sort of, with heavy guitars and, things like that, but at the same time it has elements of metal, but it's also the guy's rapping and he's wearing a backwards baseball cap, and it's just a different vibe than your typical metal band. So it's, I think, like I said, you have to have something original, and then all of a sudden that goes for a while, and then it's that kind of.
Keith, who is the first in your mind? Who's the first new NU metal band that like broke? I don't mean like the first guys like in their basement like playing, but like they came out on the radio that like kind of broke. What in your mind? Who do you associate with?
I mean, to me, I don't know if this is the first band that broke the mold for what you would call NU metal. I mean, the new metal. I think that a band when they came along that actually got my attention, and we spoke about this in the past, was Korn. When Korn first came out, their first album was different. It's interesting, and I still could probably listen to it and be like, "That's got it's grooving." There's not guitar solos over the place, and then it's the opposite. It's got a lot of weird, like, kind of harmonics and the bass.
I like to call it metal with extras.
Yeah, it's got definitely elements of metal, but Jonathan Davis's vocal style is not your typical Bruce Dickinson style.
Mm-mm.
I mean, so he doesn't sound like an Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, he's doing his own thing. So once again, you need something becomes tired, and then you need something original to kick it in the ass a little bit. So doing something different like that, whether I'm not a big Limp Bizkit fan, but Fred Durst comes along who really can't sing, but he's out there like kind of just doing his white boy rap thing. So he's, kind of gets people's attention, because a lot of kids from the suburbs, they like hip hop, but then they like metal too. So it's like,
well,
hey,
I think that gets back to the idea of relatability. And
Yeah.
I think that is part of the success of bands like Limp Bizkit and artists like Kid Rock, who have that relatability. You've got rednecks, and no offense, who like kind of like rap and they kind of like rock, and they're
So
like,
they mix it up.
who's gonna like kind of do who's speaking for me.
Yeah.
And I think that. Yeah, and I don't want to criticize your music. Whatever you like, you like. I mean, music is personal. But I think that artists like that are examples of something that's like a little different, that kind of stands out, even though it may have gotten tired really quick. That we're not talking about that. I'm not saying that, it didn't get tired quick, but it had a big thing and it did get people. Lily, you have something to say.
About that?
About anything. I can see you have something to say. You're like, Lily's like furiously looking at her notes and she wants to get in here. So.
No, I'm just trying to keep my notes up, but I mean, I would say, and I don't really have I don't have a really good example of a passionate band, because all bands are passionate, but the passion has to be there. And I have an example. Dokken, when they're performing live, as we saw, did not really have the passion behind it. And I guess I sort of did a lot of seeing bands live with this and not really thought of just the music itself whenever I did my notes for this. But I feel like your heart needs to really be in it, or, I mean, I'm going to be bored with it if you're bored with it. So if you're not into it, then I'm not going to be into it. So kind of, for me, that'll...
Well, see, that gets back to to the other side of, like, there's a lot of people who are, like, technically great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if, and Keith, you've probably run into this, and I think we saw this when we went down to New Orleans. There's a lot of people who, like, they've got that, they can sing in a show band or a cruise ship band or a, casino band, or they can sing commercials or whatever. But what I think really grabs people is somebody who puts their balls into it, who really kind of like throws it all out there. I think a really good example is somebody like Bono. Whether you like U2 or not, I mean, I think one part of their success is that sort of like heart on my sleeve, throwing it all out there, giving it all away, kind of thing. I think Dave Grohl is good at that too. I think he's another guy who kind of like just puts it all out there. When you hear him sing, like you feel exhausted by the end of the song, because he's just like,
on a nightly basis, that guy's empty in the tank. He's leaving nothing. He's leaving all that shit on the stage. I mean, that's one guy that still, I think, will be relevant for a while, due to the fact that he just seems to be a down to earth, cool dude. He's talented, and he just puts it out there.
He's got the passion, the uniqueness, and the relatability, because he does come across as very relatable. You feel like if he walked into a bar, you'd just sit down and have a beer with him and start talking to him. You know, just like, you know, I think that yeah.
React to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's regardless of, that's why kids would react to the new metal stuff, because they were listening to different kinds of music, you know. The first time you heard Linkin Park, you were like, well, this is kind of different. They have a rapper, they have a singer, they got, you know, this, and it's a little bit different, and they got, you know, lumped in with that. So
that's the uniqueness or quirkiness vibe.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
with that,
So
you know what I mean? It's like,
how,
well, this is different. What are they doing here? You know, this is, you know,
exactly.
I think like a good example of a band that I think is kind of quirky and unique in a cool way is a band like Jamiroquai, which is a band that plays disco, but they don't suck. It's like killer songwriting, killer production, killer musicianship, but basically it's that four on the floor kind of disco music.
I
but
can
these
listen to them and not.
guys are amazing band, you know.
Yeah, they can. That's
They're kind of like the Steely Dan of disco.
Yeah, they're really good players, and yeah, the vocals are off the charts good in that band, man. So yeah,
We're gonna come.
I mean,
God.
bands you've heard, you know, from time to time. I mean, everybody has those couple bands where they might get lumped in with some certain style or genre, and the next thing you know, it's like you hear that, and you're like, well, that is different than that. The first time I heard the Police, it was like that. They got lumped in with that new wave and punk thing, and they were sort of that. But those new wave and punk bands weren't playing like reggae chords and, you know, doing interesting drum beats and have the vocal styling of Sting. And that's, you know, that there's a, if you want to call it a quirkiness to the Police, they were, I think, set themselves apart. That's why they become huge.
Absolutely. Completely set themselves apart. We're going to come back and talk some more about this. Speaking of setting yourself apart, this is My First Lover by Lou Lombardi's Strange Love on the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. We're talking about what makes the great songs, the great bands great. And it's a kind of, there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of ideas floating around, and I have mine, and we all three of us have ours. And it's, I think it is an amalgam of all this. So stick around, guys, and chime in with your comments. We wanna know what you think. Jumping back on in about 40 seconds. All right, guys, welcome back to the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. Keith the Hawk Hawkins is in the house tonight, as well as Lily V6. Let's give a little bit of rundown here. You can go back to the bands we've been listening to. We opened the show with Love Stallion. You can go to lovestallionrocks.com, and that was a little bit of my band, Strange Love, and you can go to lombardimusic.com to check out more about that. We've got Despyre and Graveyard coming up in a little while. The topic tonight is what makes the great music so fucking awesome. You know, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, it can. I believe these concepts that me and Lily and Keith are all talking about, like, apply to everything. You know, it applies to jazz, country, you know, the artists that really kind of like grab people. And even if they grab people for a short period of time, maybe it doesn't really become classic. It has some elements in common that kind of like are important. I think you can find over and over and over. And I think we found out that part of it is if it is a band, the consistency, the passion, you know, really kind of like persisting through to get the thing right. You know, quirkiness, something a little different, something that grabs your ear. You know, like if you think about some of these singers, you know, you think about a singer like Ozzy. He's got a really distinctive voice.
Yeah, you know it's him.
I mean, it's just like the second he opens his mouth, you know that it's him. So I mean, there's this distinctiveness, this quirkiness that we're calling it. You know, bands like Steely Dan, The Police, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, they all have this thing. It's like, you know them. Queen, Metallica, it doesn't matter. The Foo Fighters, they all, you know, it's a consistent thing. It crosses genres. It doesn't matter. So we're that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go to Lily. What else? Let's get something else on your. Do you want to? Why don't we give a shout out? We got some people listening.
Yes.
We'll get back to Keith and Lily here in a minute. Go ahead.
We have Jason Pinkney, Tom Proctor listening, Jen Holland, Justin Morey. Billy Mank.
Billy!
Jen Holland actually chimed in with vocals, guitar riffs in the pocket bass, and drums. When I think of Awesome Band, I think of Red Hot Chili Peppers. Jason Pinkney said, a great feel on the songs, things you can relate to, something that can transport you to another time and place, and things you like cool guitar riffs, lyric style. Jen said, sure, think of the great artists. They all have a presence that draws you in.
I think that I do think that there's an element of charisma to whoever's performing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like
There's something charismatic. You want to look at that person. You want to listen to them. They.
yeah. So for example, when I went to Generation X, none of them really sang anything. But watching Steve Vai make love to his guitar on the stage, I'm gonna tell you what. I couldn't take my eyes off of his hips as he was
Lord
like,
Jesus!
I know. It's Steve Vai, and I have a crush on him anyway. But and normally I would just sit there and kind of just listen. But I watched him literally move with his guitar, and it was so fun. It was so fun.
Yeah. Sometimes Billy, he goes to bars and changes his name to Big Jack Butler and starts cutting heads.
Hot.
In case you want to see that too, yeah.
Kids want to see Jack Butler cut heads.
Trying to kick Ralph Macchio's ass, but that was the
I mean,
wow! Don't be hating on Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio won that, man.
well, it was actually really Steve, but that's okay. We won't tell.
I think that the word we were talking about, like for passion, I think we could call that authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's really how you feel. You're not trying to be like the last 5 bands, and we all know those bands. There's been those cookie cutter bands that came out, and they have like a little something going on here and there, but really, it's that like, no, this is really how we feel. What about this concept? What about the idea of the concept? Like, let me give you an example. Black Sabbath. That's a concept. That's this idea that, because you think about it, it's the Sabbath, right? The Sabbath is like, it's happy and it's Sunday and we all wear our bonnets and, and blah, blah, blah. But it's a black.
So they turned the nice happy day
right.
into
So this
demonic.
is a concept. And so what you guys, Keith, what do you think about like the concept? Like, I mean, I think that's kind of something that kind of is important. What's your sort of attitude on that?
It is. I don't know where. I'm not aware of bonnet, but I mean, it's. Do you wear a bonnet sometimes?
He probably does.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
When we don't know.
Come on, you play in church. You see the ladies with the hats, with all the stuff, right?
Yeah, but
I don't go to church.
What?
Not a bonnet.
Well, I'm okay.
Us Polish people call them babushkas.
Babush. I saw a meme on Facebook with cats wearing babushkas. It was absolutely adorable. But go ahead.
I think the concept is a good idea. It's probably something I really didn't think of in the beginning. But yeah, if you're going to have a vision of what your band's going to be, you base the name around it. You base kind of like what you're going to go for with it. I mean, I think that comes with my next point is I think any iconic band, artist, whatever, they might not get this in the beginning, but I think that once they prove themselves and they go, through the years, you have to obviously be creative, but you have to have some kind of creative control over what you're doing. Because I think bands you hear it on the saturated pop market nowadays, whether it's pop country or just any kind of like, pop format that you're listening to, where I can't tell one artist from the next. So when you're listening to that stuff, those people are all getting into the whole, let's just keep regurgitating the same song and maybe change the one little thing about it, but I can't tell the difference between any of those songs, mostly. That's why I can't stand the radio. So these bands that I think are iconic have all stood up to the man, or whatever you want to say, and said, we're going to have creative control of what we're going to do. And that's why they became so big, because eventually everybody's going to be like, all right, well, we're going to give it to you. Maybe it might be a struggle, but I think that bands or artists become great due to the fact that they can just kind of, eventually, when you call your own shots, you have to have that creative balance going on.
I don't know. I don't know if you have Amazon Prime, but if you do, and you can probably find this on YouTube, Keith, you would love this. I rewatched this documentary over the weekend. It's a documentary about 2112 and moving pictures. And it's exactly what you're talking about. They were struggling for creative control. They did Crest of Steel, and the record company was like, no, no.
That's the thing, where you want to be. If you're going to be in control of your career, I mean, these guys are, hey, a lot of people can say, hey, why'd you get into music in the first place? Well, some people might be stupid enough to say, oh, I got into it for money and chicks. Well, that's the wrong reason. That's nice if you can do that, whatever. But I would think that you loved, if you're going to be in a band that writing your own material and you're like taking it very serious, you would hope, I would hope anyway, that the music would come first, and you want to have some kind of creative control over it. I think this is where a band, unfortunately, like a band like you said, you like Nickelback or something like that. Yeah, they turn out hit after hit, but I mean, a lot of their songs sound the same. I don't know how much control.
Well, that's the biggest criticism of them, is that they basically there's no growth, there's no change, there's nothing. I
don't. And hey, man, they sell a ton of records. I'm not going to dog them. I mean, if you can do it on that kind of.
Yeah, but
it's I can't tell one from the next.
But do they? And I don't really know. I don't really know how it all works. But you look at a band like Rush. I know that's Lily's favorite band. That was able to sort of write their own ticket after doing 2112. They could do it whatever they wanted because they proved that, like, we could play the music we want. Yeah, we could play the music we want, and people are going to buy these records. They're going to freaking love. It was a different era. I get it. I understand it was a different era, but still, nonetheless, I think that there is this, and I think this comes to all the things we talked about. It comes to quirkiness, concept, authenticity, all of that stuff, relatability, because. And those guys are just completely committed to it. They were like, hell or high water. Either we're going to, Neil Peart was like, okay, I'll go back to working in my dad's hardware store if this isn't going to fly, but we can't not do what we want to do. And I think that is a kind of subliminal thing that I think comes through the music to people and I think when bands start to kind of reach that stage where they're like, oh, we were successful, so we need to kind of find a way to duplicate that. I think the audiences can smell that coming. They smell that a mile away, and that is why a lot of bands who have a big record and then they can't duplicate it, it's because they're trying to duplicate what they just did instead of just doing the next thing, whatever it is, and being authentic.
And that doesn't always work.
And it does
not. It
not.
does sometimes.
Every once in a while, it works.
But not always.
I keep banging this drum, to you. I mean, I beat your ear about it at the weekend when they were nominated, but that's why I think Radiohead's the most influential rock band of the last.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk about. Here's what I want to talk about once we wrap this section up. I want to talk about. Check this out, and I want you to chime in on this because then you're going to have different opinions. That's what makes this podcast fun. Radiohead is getting inducted, and so is Def Leppard. Okay, I won't do another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame podcast. I hate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But we will talk. We're going to get into that in a bit.
Sometimes I get it right, and Radiohead should be in there. That's
we're going to talk. We're going to talk because I want to compare and contrast those two bands, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Lily, I know you got something to say. Keith and I are just going crazy.
Well, I didn't. For the concept thing that you guys started with, I don't know if I necessarily need for myself to hear a band than for them to have a concept for me to like it. So that's the only thing.
Wait a minute. Let me throw it out. You like Kiss, right?
Yes.
It's a concept.
I know, but I don't.
Motley Crue.
But I didn't need that. I don't need it to be there.
I don't know if Kiss would have the impact that they had without that concept. That's what kind of like.
But when I was little, I didn't know what they looked like.
I think unfortunately sometimes to the average consumer's ear, not that you're average, but I'm just saying the average person's ear, when you play them a song, they don't listen to the lyrics. They can give a shit. They want to hear the hook, and they just want to hear the hook.
I think that's
wearing makeup or baby shoes or whatever. I don't know, but the concept is important.
But I don't mean like a concept album, or even necessarily like. I think the concept of the song. The concept of I think two bands you could are kind of brother and sister to each other or brothers of each other are Kiss and Motley Crue. They play these. The concept is let's play sexy, simple rock songs that come from the fucking groin.
Then that's what they're doing. What I like.
It's what I think Kiss are the kind of precursors to hair metal in many, many ways.
Oh yeah.
It's what we call cock rock, and maybe we should do a podcast on cock rock. But it's all about.
Do not put the word cock in it ever. What are you talking about?
It's all about fucking. I mean, everything Kiss was about getting laid and partying.
And so was Motley Crue.
And Motley Crue is kind of the next generation. They took that and they dressed up in crazy costumes, the makeup. I mean, Twisted Sister. I mean, it became.
What about Aerosmith?
Aerosmith, I think started out as then they kind of started out as more of a blues rock band and a kind of the America's Stones kind of vibe. What did you think, Keith?
I've said this a million times on here, and I know it's chaps and butts, but I don't like anything after 1980 that Aerosmith did. I think before 1980, that late 70s shit they did was killer. When they
So you don't like them when they're sober?
I just like them better when they were on.
Should we put drugs on the list?
I kind of feel like that might be a thing.
Yeah, drugs and alcohol. Then that's how you're going to be great.
Some people write their best shit when they're hopped up. Look at the Beatles, man. I mean,
well,
do some drugs.
Little Lucy in the Sky.
So. Let's give Lily some love. Go ahead.
I don't know that I have much more on my list.
Whoa, Lily. That's the only reason people tune in.
No, this is why people tune in. I don't even need to talk.
Whoa.
I think we kind of already touched on this, but timing, so like being in the right place at the right time. Like any kind of hair metal bands that tried to go on in the 90s obviously weren't going to be as successful. So
timing's important.
So timing as an era time, I guess, is what I mean.
Because we talked about bands that should have been bigger, and I think that was kind of a lot of those bands' problem was they just were either too ahead or too late or too early. I mean, that's like, and that is and you hear that. I mean, that is it's something you hear all the time. From bands that are just fucking like. I think a band that like could have been like a lot. In my opinion, a band that should have been a lot bigger was the Clash. Even though they did have a handful of hits, I think they should have been way bigger than U2 or any of those bands because they kind of are the progenitors of it. But it was a little too early. And it wasn't quite pop enough.
It wasn't there yet.
And the Police and U2 were able to kind of like take that sound and bring that attitude in a way. Even Billy Idol was able to kind of like take punk and make it pop. So timing is an aspect of it.
Devo should have sold more records than Elvis then, because they were the most unique bands.
Right. And it was
people just don't get that shit after a while.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that goes back to a combination of all the topics we've talked about so far. Yes, you can have quirkiness, but if you don't have enough relatability, you're just going to be kind of relegated to like, oh, Devo.
Here's another band.
Yeah, here's another kind of weirdo band. Like, what's that band we always make fun of? The Velvet Underground.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they have quirkiness out the fucking ass.
They have all the quirks.
But they don't, but where's the hook? Where's the relatability? It's so bizarre. That I believe people like the Velvet Underground just because they want to be weird and they want to stand out and like Andy Warhol.
No one else likes them and they feel sorry for them.
Right, or they just want to be different. And I get it.
Yeah, that's just
I respect Lou Reed as a songwriter, but
I like the Velvet Underground, but it's like you can't name like 3 songs by them. I just don't say nothing about them because I don't want to hear them.
Yeah. I agree with you.
They're just a little
Mom always says,
okay,
if you have nothing good to say, don't say nothing.
Hey, Keith, let me ask you a question real quick. Are you on a computer or your mobile?
I'm on my phone right now.
Okay. When you talk, brother, I need you to get closer or talk louder. I know you don't feel good, so maybe get a little closer.
I have like no voice, man.
Yeah, if you could get a little closer, like lean into it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, it sounds good, but it's a little soft. You're not cutting out and in and out like we were, huh? Like no, it's like you're there all the time, but the volume's going up and down if you get a little closer. So, Lily's going to read a few more comments. What do you got?
Well, Jen Holland said some have great gimmicks like Slipknot and Ghost. I don't know that necessarily needs to be a thing.
Kiss again, yeah.
Yeah, it's a concept. Steven Tyler sounds exactly what you would think he looks like. That's from Jason Pinkney. Jen Holland said something about the record company controls that. It seems I think that was, I can't remember what that was in reference to now. Wolf and Raven are watching.
Yay! Keith, let me ask you about this because you are a musician, and you are a musician's musician. You are like fan-fucking-tastic. Let's talk about execution. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean by execution? Like, you got your shit together. Like, you can actually play.
Oh, talent?
You can actually fucking sing.
Talent?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That goes a long way.
But a lot of people, like, because I got guys sending me records all the time. I'm like,
well, that's fine. I disagree with
take guitar lessons.
The producer thing. In the beginning, a lot of people will comment about, if it's got a great producer. That's not exactly true. I mean, I'm sure the fucking Velvet Underground probably could have had, Mutt Lange producing a record, and it still sound like a bag of shit. Because you can't polish your guitar, man.
A bag of
shit. You can have all the good production you want, and you know what? If you can't play your instrument, or you can't like get together and write a freaking song, I mean, that's going to suck. And you might want to go and maybe learn some shit first. Because bands that are great bands can actually play. I'm not saying they have to be phenomenal. Is U2 the best musicians I ever heard in my life? Fuck no. The Beatles weren't the greatest musicians I ever heard in my life. But at the same time, they write great songs. They play good.
They play they play those songs and that music exactly perfectly the way it should be played. It's not about like
are they in the same mode as like same caliber as Rush? I mean, Rush is a musicians band. They write great songs and they play like they're fucking gods. That's what they are. You know, it's just one of them things where, but today that's why it sucks today because you don't even need talent. You basically can just go on your computer. Some kid at his house learns 2 chords and he can
that annoys the shit out of me.
Auto-tune the shit out of his voice and, play a couple of little ditties, and next thing you know, he got 1 million hits on YouTube because his buddies told somebody else.
Just a little off topic, but just for the record, there's a lot of like EDM producers and stuff that like have YouTube videos that talk about this exact same thing, and they're like, it's not just about hitting the fucking computer and dropping the bass, and you have to have musical knowledge and understanding. And so the guys that are good at what they do in that genre, like, are different than just, you're right, the morons that think because they've got an Apple computer with GarageBand that they can become, right? Absolutely. But I think execution is really important. And what I always said was, you've got to have the right performance, the right production, for whatever song it is. It doesn't, in other words, if you play like Yngwie and you're going to play Something in the Way She Moves by the Beatles, it's probably going to suck.
That's probably not going to work.
That's probably not going to work. So you've got to have the right, that's why George Harrison is the most brilliant guitar player for the Beatles. He's perfect. He's like amazing, and in general, he is a great guitar player. But I'm talking about like comparing him to like somebody like who makes love to their guitar on stage like Steve Vai is not. It's like apples and oranges. You're not even talking about the same thing. If George Harrison got on stage and tried to do a Steve Vai thing or Slayer thing,
I was just trying to be something totally
right,
different.
Right. It would just be like, what do you? No.
Well, that's just not going to work. I mean,
right. So the execution.
It has to work.
So when I think of execution, I think of like, you don't have to be Yngwie. You just have to be the right guitar player playing the right stuff on that song. It's just, and that's what all the great music is like. When you hear like the solo on the outro of We Will Rock You, I mean, that's not like some crazy fast shit. I mean, it's freaking perfect. It totally rounds that piece of music out fucking perfectly.
Yeah, if you get guys that are great guitar players, then you get guys that can write great songs too. I mean, outside of the guitar shred world, I mean, I don't.
Well, I would throw out. Yeah, I throw out Billy Gibbons and Joe Walsh and Angus Young, but Malcolm Young. No, they're not brilliant. I mean, they are brilliant. I mean, they're not like shredders. But
no,
would you think
that is Mike Campbell is the best example?
Yeah, Mike Campbell's perfect.
Mike Campbell writes the perfect riff, solo, note for note, every damn song. Whether he's playing with Tom Petty or writing shit for Don Henley or whoever, what he's doing, he's writing the perfect riff to the song. Everything falls into place. But he's not going to go out and win some fucking shred contest next week. He's just not that kind of player. He is a player. It's like The Edge, and a lot of guitar players rip The Edge. Hey man, he got a lot of freaking records on his wall though. I mean, you gotta find your niche, man.
Hey, so I think that we've kind of like come up. I think we've kind of. What do you got? You got on this particular subject. We're going to come back. I want to talk about a couple of things when we come back. We'll play another song on this particular subject. How are we feeling? Do we feel like we've kind of come up with the kind of basic idea? If you guys have been listening, you're kind of getting where we're coming from. It's the execution, it's the authenticity, it's the uniqueness or quirkiness.
That's all. I mean, yeah, there's a lot you can go on it. So you can go on and on, but I think that we've definitely got to the point where it's, I think
It's the relevance or relatability. It's the concept. I mean, I think
the basic.
We think we've kind of hit it.
Like,
we're gonna play another song, and I want to come back. I don't know if you know about you and I talked about Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna come back because Lee Kerslake has like 8 months to live, and so we're gonna come back and talk about what's going because there's some fucked up shit going on there. Pardon my language. You're listening to Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. Our website is loudinirockandrollcircus.com. Please check it out. We have a lot of cool podcasts out there. So great big shout out to Rock Rage Radio, John and Gigi for bringing us into the fold. We are absolutely loving it and all the freaking attention because you know we're a band and we love fans. So I mean we're getting like 2,000, 2,500 views on these YouTube things. It's freaking awesome. And so we're really grateful to Rock Rage Radio. Go to LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com to check out a lot of more great podcasts. Well, this is we're going to crank out a band right now called Despyre, Blue Sky on the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. We'll talk to you. We'll be back in a little bit. We're going to talk more about some other topics here. Great conversation night. Great to have Keith the Hawk Hawkins back. And we'll talk to you guys in a little bit here.
When I'm feeling you by my side,
Wow, that like burnt half the freaking studio down. I mean, those guys
where was that?
kick freaking ass. That is Despyre.
I
You
love
can go to
Despyre.
Despyre.com, DESPYRE.com. Check them out. I have to give a shout out, Keith. I can't believe we forgot this.
What?
It's Keith Richards' 75th birthday today. Did you know that?
Oh,
Nah,
no,
he's like 10,000.
probably celebrating with I don't know, whatever.
He switched his blood out today. That's what he celebrated with.
Hard to say with him. I don't know what he's up to nowadays.
He's not alive anymore. Come on.
You think he's been cloned?
Jazz Fest next year.
Honestly, I'm surprised that he's only. I really thought he was closer to 80.
I really thought he was
that
much
That
older.
seems like
too.
wrong to me. It seems more like
I thought
he's
he
more
died
like
5
80.
years ago. He's still rolling, I think.
Yeah, he's been 75 for like 10 years straight.
Yeah, I keep saying I'm 30, so
His liver is 175.
probably.
So, check this out, and I want you to comment on this because I respect and you too, Lily. I respect you guys' sort of thoughts and opinions on this. Lee Kerslake, the drummer. See, a lot of people think that that's Tommy Aldridge on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. It is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
That's
Lee
Lee.
Kerslake. So Lee Kerslake, he's had cancer for a long time. He's losing his battle with cancer. They're saying he's got maybe 8 months to live.
Oh.
And all he wants is the Osbournes to send him the platinum records. That's all he wants. Now, if I don't know how much you guys know about this, but like everybody gets the platinum record. Like the guy that brought coffee to the band while they were in the studio gets the fucking platinum record. Like everybody, they send it to everybody. They have not sent all these years. When was Blizzard of Oz released? Do you know?
Jesus, I don't remember now.
So
80s.
1980, 81.
Well, no, early 80s.
Yeah. They can't send Lee a I mean, he's like giving
Why
up.
are they not? Is there a reason?
Well, he's giving up on the money. Well, I mean, you know what Sharon did, right?
I actually
she put
don't.
Them,
That's
she
why I'm
put them
asking.
back in the studio with the guy from the Deftones on bass. The guy plays with Metallica now, right? Keith?
Robert Trujillo, yeah.
Yeah, and a drummer. I can't remember.
1980. They came out, sorry.
What'd you say?
He was in Suicidal Tendencies before that, and then he was in Metallica. After that.
I'm sorry, Suicidal Tendencies, and they went out and they re-recorded that album without those two guys on it, and just used Ozzy's vocals and Randy's guitar playing. I mean, what if I'm Sharon? Like you're a fucking bitch.
Like, why is she doing
Like
that?
I mean, and Ozzy has said because that came out and it played. I know DVE played it like once. And it's just like kissing your sister. It's like, I mean, so what are your thoughts on this, Keith?
I think it's a shame. I read a little something about it, and I think it's if you're really like that, whether it's I'm sure it's not him because he pretty much doesn't do anything but just kind of lay around anyway. So just if it's Sharon's the mastermind behind that shit, and if she don't want to hook the guy up, I mean the dude's dying. I mean, goddamn, give him just a dying wish, man.
Yeah, like it's a dying wish. Just let him have it. Oh my God, stop.
I mean, I'm sorry. Is it Bob Daisley? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Not Daisley. Daisley.
Daisley.
He wrote the lyrics to like classic songs like Crazy Train. And like they've been very like weird with them. The original concept for that album was the band was supposed to be called Blizzard of Oz, featuring Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay.
Well, and when it came out, the album was called Blizzard of Oz, and it was an Ozzy album. And the rest is kind of history.
The man's dying. Just stop.
Just give him, just send him his platinum record.
Platinum damn record for Christ's sake. I mean,
It won't kill anybody. I mean,
messed up. I don't know what's wrong with that lady.
that's I'm sorry, that's fucked up. That's just wrong.
Yeah, that is.
They're rich. I mean, Ozzy
More money
is
than God.
very well managed. Like, he's fucking rich. He's not.
Sure.
He's not fucking hurting at all. Not even a little bit. And probably all his kids are rich. They all probably all have trust funds. None of them probably have to work.
Nah. So he does that show on whatever channel with his son. They just drive around in an RV and just look at.
Did you see that they just met Mac Sabbath? By the way,
what is Mac Sabbath? By the way,
it's like a parody band. It's all McDonald's characters.
Oh
doing...
yes, I've
They've come here.
I've seen that. Like
Couple times.
I've seen their YouTube videos.
Yeah, so Ozzy
It's fucking
finally
funny.
met Mac Sabbath. So I heard.
So I just think that's good. Now another thing I want to run by you guys. Should Van Halen do something? Because David Lee Roth was recently interviewed and kind of intimated that like they're going to put a record and
Don't
tour
they
in 2019.
always end up like arguing and canceling half the shit anyway, though? Like, I don't know. I've seen them twice and I love them, but I don't know. Is it time to just stop? I don't know.
Like Keith Lee.
Do I think they should? What was the question? I think they.
What was the question?
On the record, I missed that. I don't know. It's like,
Should they do something?
Should they do so? Because David Lee Roth has kind of intimated that something's going to happen with Van Halen in 2019.
well, I mean, Dave, what else you got to hang on? You know, so it's they do. That's great. I mean, that's another cool, iconic band from back in the day that's still hanging around, and if they can make some good music, that would be nice. But,
Halfway into the tour. Huge fight.
I mean, there's an easier way to go about it. Just go out there and jump around. And
I've been meaning to ask you this for years, and maybe I asked you this on some drunken night, and I can't remember.
I'm sure you did, but go on.
I want you to talk about Alex Van Halen as a drummer. While I have you, because I don't always have you on here. And you're such an amazing drummer, and I want to know your thoughts on that.
I love Alex Van Halen as a drummer. I think that he doesn't always get the best sounds out of his drums, my personal opinion. I think sometimes his drums sound a little, I don't know.
Like, snare
yeah,
sound.
there's a little dead, but that's maybe the sound. That's the sound he's going for, and I mean that's kind of what it is. As a player, though, he's fine, great, technically solid player. Can throw some, he has. I mean, hey, the beginning of the intro to Hot for Teachers is one of the iconic drum, intros of all time. He does very cool, like sometimes his cymbal patterns are cool. I mean, he really lays into it. Plays a good heavy player when he needs to be. I like some of his more groove stuff he does on like songs like "Finish What You Started," where he does the cool offbeat stuff on the snare. I think it's really hip. I mean, he's more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy when it comes down to it, but I think that he's a great rock and roll drummer. I mean,
okay, wait a minute. Let me ask you this question. Right, because I got you. I don't get you all the time. I want you to compare and contrast Tommy Lee with Alex Van Halen.
Really?
Because Lily's here.
Well, Tommy Lee's the same thing. I mean, he has great. Both of them have that great feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they play a song, they're laying down the groove that their bands are. I mean that shit was those bands are made around some of those guitar. Those drum tracks are solid, man.
Yeah.
On all their playing. I mean those guys can really lay down a foundation, and whether it's just playing the simplest thing or being like more creative, they can do it. I can listen to intro to Dr. Feelgood all day and still have put the smile on my face. It's just a good intro to a song.
Groove,
the drums great on that. I thought Tommy Lee was one of those guys that were not the he doesn't have technically the best chops I've heard guys have. I mean, he can't compare to some of the rock heavyweights, but I mean, he's innovative when it comes to solos. I mean, anybody can go and spin upside down and just do all the crazy shit he did. I thought he took the drum solo to another level at times and very theatrical. I've seen him when he did a solo where he had his drums looked like big speakers and he would play along to cover tunes and stuff. So I think he was innovative as a soloist when he was playing. I think that he definitely is a solid timekeeper behind the band. Probably to me, I would say the most well-rounded musician in that band by far. I mean, it's I think he can play guitar, he sings, He's a really solid rock and roll drummer, and plus he can steer a boat with his dick. So I mean,
I was just gonna say he has a giant ween. I wish he would have not beat me to that.
And I don't know the size of Alex Van Halen's business.
I'm not really sure what it is. I'm not really
it doesn't matter. Tommy wins.
Are we talking like here to here, or like here to here, or like here to here? You guys who are just listening to the podcast, you're not knowing the...
It's completely out of context now.
Is it like a baby's arm holding an apple?
Wow.
I don't know.
Have you not seen Tommy's?
No.
You've never seen the video?
And I really have no desire.
You've never seen the video?
Here's my just I'm just going to kind of give my opinion on it. I think a tour where they go out and play the songs that everybody knows and loves is a great idea. And I think they need to get Michael Anthony. I know Wolfgang is your child. Leave him at home.
Valerie will literally shoot somebody if her kid isn't in the band.
What Eddie should do is get together with Wolfgang and help Wolfgang get a band together and produce his own band, and Eddie could produce it. It'd be cool.
Yeah, but
that'd be super
that's
fun.
not Van Halen.
and then they need to make kiss and make up with Michael Anthony.
Yeah,
this is an example of where everybody's like, oh, he's just a bass player. No.
I mean,
Michael Anthony's very important to the Van Halen sound.
Vocals, though, that harmony vocals are his shit, man.
When you see Chickenfoot and you hear Michael Anthony, you're like, yes, I love that.
Remember that guy used to be in Van Halen.
Yeah, he's fucking great. Sammy Hagar knows what's up. So I think they should, if they're gonna do, but they should definitely not do a new record. I hate to say this, nobody gives a rat's ass. Yeah, don't do it. Just go out. Just go out.
So fun.
Now, listen to me. I'm just gonna say this. I think Eddie has the potential to still be relevant if. Now, this is gonna be a little controversial, and I want your guys' opinion on this. If he were to do what Santana did in the early 2000s, where Santana says, I still want to be relevant, so he brought out current artists and did songs with those current artists, and it got him... Because Santana's fucking Santana. I think he sounds like shit now, but at that time I thought he did good. No, Lily, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you why, though.
Go ahead.
Great idea, but you're not touring with those people, though.
You don't have to tour. It doesn't have to be a tour.
But Santana toured, and those people weren't on the thing, and he did
all
all
the songs. That was silly. But what I'm just saying, he could do a record with what's the guy from Maroon 5 who's touring with
No, Lambert.
He could do with he could do a song with could you imagine Eddie doing a song with Lady Gaga? He did a song with Michael Jackson. Why couldn't he do
that
a song
part
with
of
Lady
it's
Gaga?
cool, but then when you're going to put out a tour, you need to have those people.
You can't do the tour. The tour will have
That's
to kind
what Santana did.
He could just do a few. What they could do is just a few big shows. L.A., Chicago, New York, Nashville, Pittsburgh. What do you think, Keith? What's your sort of thoughts on that?
I don't think they should put out a new album either. I mean, that's just my thought on it, though. But unfortunately, I have to cut it short. I have to leave, actually. So,
what?
Oh.
Wow! We only get you once every 6 weeks, and I
myself in different rings tonight here. I was supposed to be at rehearsal 25 minutes ago. So
shit.
Okay, listen. New Year's Day, we can do it, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
New Year's Day, we're going to be live.
I will be hungover. That's the day after my birthday.
But that's okay.
But I'll be
Hungover's fine.
here.
We'll be here.
That's
Keith,
right,
take care. Have a great rehearsal, brother.
I'm on the air in a moment.
Love you, man. Take care, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you for the Christmas presents.
Yes, man. Have a good one. All right.
Take care, brother. We'll talk to you soon, man. I'll text you later. All right.
Okay. Thanks, man. See you.
By the way, today's my year with the podcast.
I know. Can you believe Lily V6? I was blown away.
I saw it this morning on my memories.
When Lily V6 from Rock Rage, who I consider a kind of rock star in her own right.
Oh, please.
I do. Was like, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. I'm like, oh, what? Oh, my God.
Oh, and now we're neighbors.
Yeah, we are neighbors. We're literally next door neighbors. But I think that Eddie could do something really cool bring in current guys. Another thing maybe Eddie could do, maybe. Well, Slash did the same thing. Slash's album, before he started working exclusively with Miles Kennedy, worked with a bunch of different singers.
Yeah, I know.
And it was very cool. And I think that you could, like, I think Eddie kind of needs to. But here's Van Halen's problem.
I'm ready.
They're rich.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of a problem, isn't it?
Well, I mean, like, it's not like
They don't
a problem,
have to do it.
But they don't have to do it. They don't care.
No.
And I kind of feel like whatever we get from Van Halen on tour or whatever, I think this is the reason why it comes off as half-assed.
Because
and
they
that's
don't have
wrong.
to do it.
Don't do it then.
That's when I don't like a
fucking do
band
it.
to keep doing it.
Don't-
Because they're just doing it
we
for...
saw Don Dock, and he didn't give a fuck.
I made my whole lifestyle.
I mean, it was disappointing. I mean, the opening acts were better.
Silk Nine and
they were like playing for their fucking lives,
Yeah.
and that's what rock and roll is about. If you're not playing for your life, you stay home. Please don't. We'll go back and listen to Diver Down and Van Halen 2, and we'll love it. And you can just stay home. Really, it's not necessary, because I know you're not hurting for bucks.
Not at all. Not when you're Van Halen.
No.
Unless, like I said, Valerie might be dipping into that.
Well, I mean, the story was about, and I don't know if you're a big Who fan or not, but the story was the reason the Who kept touring, because John Entwistle would be like, "Oh, guys, I'm out of money. I've blown all my money on cocaine," and he would do it. He
It's
died.
time to
That's
tour
why
again.
he was 60 and he was doing coke, and his heart went, and he died.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
And I had two friends. That happened to two friends of mine. So he was, doing that, and so they'd be like, so Pete would call up Roger and say,
We're gonna do this again.
he's broke, and we need
Rolls
to play.
his eyes.
Is that all right with you? And Roger'd be like, I got nothing else going on. Let's go out and sing Won't Get Fooled Again. What the fuck? And so, that's different. Well, not really. But, even when they did that concert for New York, remember when all the bands got together after 9/11?
Yeah.
Like Billy Joel, The Who. And I thought The Who played a bust-ass set. Like, no, it wasn't the same as...
It's not gonna be.
But
though.
but I felt like I
They're
kind of got
old.
the impression that Pete Townsend was really enjoying what he was doing. Like, and Roger Daltrey, both those guys are really, and Pino Palladino was playing bass, and I got the feeling he was tickled pink to play with the fucking Who. And if you don't care, please stay home.
Just go to take a nap.
Just chill. Like, Eddie, you have nothing to prove. You're already the most, after Hendrix, you're probably the most iconic guitar player of all time. You and Hendrix. I mean, how many guitar players can say that?
Not too many.
Not.
There's a handful.
What do you mean, not too many? None! None!
There's this many.
I mean, like, Jeff Beck is amazing. I love Jeff Beck is my favorite.
I was gonna say, isn't that your boy?
But he's my buoy. But really, if you take the 30,000-foot view, it's Hendrix and Van Halen. I mean, because Van Halen changed everything about the guitar. He changed the way guitars were made. He changed the way amps were made. He changed the way the guitar sounded. He changed what a band was supposed to. And his importance to rock cannot be overstated. And the only other guy you can say that about is Hendrix, and maybe before that, Chuck Berry. Those are it.
All right, I'll agree.
I mean, because like all those bands that happened in the '80s that we all love, what was it? It was a lead singer and a hot lead guitar player, and a bass player and a drummer who were tight. And that is every band. That's like every fucking band that happened after Van Halen. That was the lineup. And I think that Randy Rhoads and Ozzy Osbourne could have made that happen, but Randy died too soon. It didn't have enough time to kind of like come together. I mean, those two records are amazing, and Randy's the fucking genius that he is, but it's really Van Halen that set the standard. They were like, okay, everybody else from here on out, you have to kind of live up to this, and nobody really did.
Good luck.
There's a lot of great bands, a lot of cool bands that I like from that came after that, but really Van Halen has everything, and it's
a great
because of Eddie.
show.
Yeah.
It's a great show to see. It's just I don't
Well, if they are going to tour, I'll go see. But I'm really not. And honestly, I think that record that they did in 14 or 15, it's not bad. It's solid. It's not like it doesn't suck. It's solid, but it's just not, it lacks the relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
And just it's a fine. You don't. If you're going to do new music, you got to really think about like how could we make it relevant, and you can't copy what's out there. So you can't go like, well, we'll do like EDM with Eddie Van Halen.
No,
you can't do
don't
that.
do that.
Don't do that. You would have to really think about it. And I think that I think a good example of somebody who was able to find a way to make themselves relevant over and over is Ozzy. Because what did they do? They did that TV show,
Yep.
The Osbournes. And would Eddie and those guys be willing to do maybe like a YouTube show?
I don't think they could do it though. I don't think
where
it-
they
I don't think
acted,
it would
where
have the
they
same
acted
thing.
out, where they just totally shot like how much big of dicks they are. To
I
each
don't
other.
think it would work the same way.
And like like this is a different generation. People listen to music in a different way. They discover music in a different way. And if you're going to reach this newer generation, and even myself, like I've listened to music in a totally different way, and I'm something years old, and so I'm even looking for something. Aren't you too? You're not
Every
like
day.
yeah. You're not like the like okay, just do the same. Put on a record and do it to a blah 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 blah.
No, I need to hear different things.
We need something to happen.
Yeah, granted, I do love my old stuff, obviously, but I want to hear something different all the time. That's why I'm trying to listen to new bands in the city. That's why I'm trying to get new bands on here. I want to hear something else.
I got to tell you, just before, because we're kind of winding down for the night, but I just want to say, I'm really impressed with the hard rock / metal scene in Pittsburgh.
It's been busting.
I
through
think
the-
it's been an underground thing for a long time. Like I remember when I played hard rock / metal in the 90s, and we would there was just a handful of us, and we would get together, and like the bands were all good.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot of them. Now there's a lot more, and like there's so much good fucking music.
Yeah.
It's
It's a lot more than I thought before I got into the radio thing.
I'm blown away. And these guys are sending me records, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Pittsburgh, okay. It's like, you guys from Pittsburgh, some of you guys may not, okay, don't sound like no Jagger shaking hash rockers.
No, I mean, like, Never
No
Wait,
thorny Irish.
Alter the Design, After the Fall, Reign of Z.
Reign of Z's killer.
There's a lot. Chip and the Charge Ups, even with his daughter. There's a lot of good bands out there. And I didn't realize that until I started doing this. And it's hard rock and metal stuff. And it's amazing.
There's a whole scene going on in this city. So if any record people are listening, or publicists or whatever, you're in, that's your niche, you might want to like reach out, because there is some cool shit happening around this area. I mean, yeah, we live in a very cool time. We're living in a time, Lily, I think, where there's like a lot. No, it's not like, because like the big media stuff is all corporately owned, and that's never going to be good.
Right.
But if you're willing to just dig a little wee bit, like type hard rock into YouTube, like that's so hard, you're going to find like there's some great bands. Mm-hmm. Good stuff,
Absolutely.
man. It's out there. So, Lily, we're going to wrap up for today. Do you have any parting thoughts, any parting shots?
My show is Thursday nights at 6 p.m.
Oh, it's all about you, isn't it?
It usually is all about me. I've told you this before.
You should call your show All About Lily. Instead of Hot Licks with Lily Vicks, All About Lily.
People like to hear me say licks. Hot Licks with Lily 6 p.m. rockrageradio.com, or get the app for your smartphone. Rock Rage Radio.
It's not fun.
6 p.m. Eastern. Oh, and I'm going to see The Night Ranger Before Christmas on Friday, so I'm going live for that.
That sounds like fun. When's it going to be? Saturday?
Friday night.
Friday.
Yes.
Okay, because, all right, maybe, is that sold out?
Nope.
Is that Jerkles?
No. It's
Where's it going to be?
the Palace.
Oh.
In Greensburg. It's so far. But I really wanted to see it. It was my Christmas present to myself. But I saw Kix on Saturday. I couldn't think of who that was in my head because I was doing a million things. But they were actually really good. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I played their song, their new song. Their publicist emailed me and said, "Can you play their song?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did," and it got blocked.
Of course it did.
What? So, and anyhow, so Kix, I like Kix was a cool band. Kix was a kind of like, they sort of kind of had that cool, they almost had like an AC/DC kind of, Jackal kind of vibe,
Yeah, it was kind of like hair metal, but not. for me because they had sort of a 70s thing going on there too. So I was liking it a lot.
Jeans and leather.
Liking it a lot. And Turbo Lovers opened for them. Not a Judas Priest tribute band.
And
by the way.
Where are they from? Are they a local band or not?
Turbo Lovers is local, I believe. I think they're Pittsburgh.
Do they have a record?
I don't know that.
Okay, if they do, tell them to reach out to me.
Yes, Turbo Lovers, if you're watching. And Wicked Earth, who is from Pittsburgh, opened for the entire show. They're rock. They were good, too. I enjoyed them a lot. Turbo Lovers are really expected to be a Judas Priest tribute band, but they were not at all. So.
Were they young guys?
One was.
Because I thought, well, maybe like young guys just picked that name and didn't even realize.
No,
there was
these
a
guys were
Judas Priest
probably old enough to know.
Naughty.
It was really good.
I will have to send you all to Irene Boss for a spanking.
Aye.
So anyway, so you guys been listening to Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. We'd like to thank our spanker.
Am I the spanker?
I'd like to thank our sponsor, the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and our Leo Tolstoy biographer, War and Peace, and the accounting firm of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Really?
So,
I love Rosencrantz and
you
Guildenstern.
don't get it, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. That got no reaction. Do we
I
cheat
get it.
them
Okay.
and how?
I get it.
Do we cheat them and how? You'd never listen to Click and Clack?
No.
Oh my God, you guys, they're on. You can find them on YouTube. I listen to Click and Clack every Saturday morning on NPR. They were freaking hilarious. They were brothers who did a show called.
When was this on?
It was like in the 80s and 90s, and they did a show in the early 2000s. They did a show called Car Talk, and people calling, and they were brothers. And they had this like typical brother thing where they kind of busted on each other, and they were really freaking funny. The one brother died. They were the Tappet brothers. So if you don't know about Click and Clack, go up and Google that. All the episodes, you can find them online. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. Anyhow, so you guys, listen. Thank you so much for hanging out with the Loudini Hard Rock and Metal Circus. I want to give a special shout out to my bro, Keith the Hawk Hawkins. Thank you for these awesome Christmas gifts you sent us. And I have a feeling that was Samantha. I think it was Samantha, really.
Samantha, thank you.
Samantha's like, you have to send them to you for Christmas. And look, Keith's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I love my little voodoo.
Yeah, I know, this is awesome. So you guys are great. So you can go to LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com to check out all the podcasts. Join us live each week, except for next week, because next week is Christmas. And really, just sorry. So as much as we love you, Rock Rage Radio Live, there's just nothing going to happen that day. So just chill. It's all going to be good.
We'll be back the 1st, though.
We're going to be back on January the 1st.
And baby will be hung over. Birthday's the day before.
And I'm telling you,
presents.
We're going to be eating, what are we going to be eating?
Pork. Sauerkraut.
Pork and sauerkraut
bread.
On the air.
All the bread.
And we're going to be, Lily's going to be getting the hair of the dog that bit her.
I'll be rehydrated.
No, you're not. You're going to be getting
No, Lou and Keith will probably get me drunk.
We're going to have a great night, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, guys, check us out on New Year's Day. So, have a wonderful, simply having a wonderful Christmas time. So, appreciate that. I want to give her a quick rundown. We started the show with Love Stallion. I met these guys. It's a great interview on LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. Check them out, LoveStallionRocks.com. We played my band my band, Strange Love. You can go to LouLombardiMusic.com. Check them out. Despyre, who I believe, did you get me turned on to this?
I love
great
them.
band. Killer band.
I saw them last Thanksgiving.
And every time I listen to it, I'm like, I'm loving them more and more. And we're going to round out the show with Graveyard. And you can go to Facebook.com/GraveyardOfficial. And we're going to check those guys out. So, Lily, any parting shots or thoughts before we rock out?
That's all I got. Send gifts. December 31st is my 37th birthday. So, I kind of feel it's important. Send
It's the 7th anniversary of your 30th birthday.
Exactly.
All right, guys, have a great holiday. Have a wonderful Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever the fuck your horse shit is. Like, you know,
Hanukkah.
And go fuck yourself. Have a wonderful holiday. We'll talk to you guys soon. Love you.